right, I'm back with This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup. Very big week this week in a number of ways, and I will start with what I believe is definitely the biggest story. Well, technically the second one might be, but the first one is nuts. And you may be able to guess this. It's the fact that Xbox just revamped their entire Xbox Game Pass system, where there's now 3 tiers. And the top line is that Xbox Game Pass Ultimate went from $20 a month to $30 a month. A full 50% increase, $10 a month increase, so it now costs $360 a year. Xbox tried to justify this by saying they added a bunch of stuff, so it's like more back catalog games. They're going to do more day one releases, 75 day one releases over the course of a year, albeit we don't really know what that is. Like, there's not that many big first party games coming out on Xbox every year, nor do most, bigger third party games ever want to release day one on Game Pass anyway. So, they might be good, but I think that's going to be a lot of smaller games. And then they also give you a Ubisoft Plus Classic subscription. That is not Ubisoft Plus. It is mostly old Assassin's Creed games, among others. So, have fun with that. And then what might be the funniest part is a Fortnite Crew subscription, which is Fortnite subscription service that gives you 1,000 V-Bucks or per period, and I think it's per month, and then a free skin. Someone made the point that, like, if you're obsessed enough with Fortnite to be getting the subscription service, do you really have time to play a back catalog of 400 other games? So very, very slim audience for that kind of stuff. And the general response is like, this is ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous to have that level of a price hike, which seems impossibly greedy. Microsoft maintains that Xbox Game Pass is profitable. But the question is, if it's so profitable, why are you hiking the price $10? You're either just being super, super greedy, or you're essentially lying about how profitable it is, and you desperately need that to increase. Of course, what this has actually done is create this big backlash among, either outside observers or Xbox fans in general, where this is an Xbox brand that already has raised hardware prices to an insane degree. An Xbox Series X now costs $600. The 2 terabyte Series X costs $800. That is more than a PS5 Pro, which also has 2 terabytes built in. They're blaming market conditions and tariffs or whatever, but that affects the people who are buying this stuff. So it almost feels like they don't want to sell hardware anymore at this point. This is 5 years after the console was released. It's absurd. And then, Sony raised prices to a certain extent too. Xbox raised them twice. But now we have this enormous hike for Game Pass. And I wrote a thing this week. I canceled it. I did. What I've said in the article is, like, with all these subscription services we have, it's sort of this like slow, frog boiling in a pot where the heat slowly turned up, where all of these services are like sliding in little $1, $2 increases over time. And sometimes it might make you cancel it, but most of the time you're just going to kind of ignore it. A 50% increase instantly, $10 a month, is going to make you sit up and take notice of, whoa, okay, am I actually getting value out of this thing to keep paying almost $400 a year for it? And when I examined that, the answer was no. Xbox is also, gotten to the point where you don't need Xbox, either really Game Pass or an Xbox console. There are no true exclusives for Xbox anymore. There haven't been for a while with its PC releases. The last big-ish Xbox exclusive I played was Avowed. Played that on Steam. And then this is opposed to Sony, which, for better or worse, has actual exclusives. Like, you can only play Ghost of Yotai this week on PS5, so you gotta own a PS5 for that. And then you can just make the decision that you're going to play, if you want to play console games, you're going to play the third-party games on PlayStation. And it very much seems unlikely that you are going to be spent, or most people are going to be spending $360 worth of games, buying games in a way that would offset, Xbox giving them to you for free on Game Pass. And again, like they're not giving you third party games, they're giving you like Xbox originals and these other kind of smaller games that are going to be on Game Pass. And like, are there even six or whatever, five or six Xbox first party games that are even out in a year to purchase? And the main question is like, do you want access to this giant back catalog? And like, do you care enough about the first day one releases? Also, it's like not even true anymore. It's a lot of these games have like early access, like 5 days early for paying money for it. So day one doesn't really mean what it used to. And then it's the only tier now besides PC Game Pass that gets you day one launches. So you have to be paying on console $30 a month for that. It's an absurd price hike, and like the latest ridiculous thing that Xbox has done over the last few years. The brand is totally lost in the woods. I have no idea what their plan is going forward. They seem all over the place. They seem desperate to get people to not buy their hardware, not subscribe to their services. And I probably should have done a whole video about this, but that is the news this week about them. And we will kind of see the aftermath. I doubt they're going to report the numbers of how many people have canceled Game Pass, but I'm guessing they're thinking, well, if enough people stick around with that high of a price hike, it'll be worth it. But I don't know about that. What is the biggest, I guess, financial news is that EA has gone private, has been taken private, or is about to be, based on a lot of investment and purchase from Saudi Arabia, the governmental fund there, and then at least two private equity companies, one of which is run by Jared Kushner, who is Trump's son-in-law. And there's all these things about, oh, this is a great new chapter in EA, and Andrew Wilson, current CEO, was like raving about it. Like, Lord knows how much he's going to make from this, and he's staying on as CEO. What does not appear to be happening is like they're just going to, oh, well, the Saudi money, we're going to inject $1 billion into this and hire up and make 1 million more games. As Jason Schreier reported, this deal comes with like $20 billion in debt, or it's financed by that. So what is likely going to happen is that there's going to need to be layoffs and cuts and probably increased revenue, some more microtransactions. This has made people really wonder what the investment is going to be in something like BioWare games, which are, almost exclusively these big single player story RPGs. BioWare, who has now had 3 misses in a row and is like banking on Mass Effect 4 being good whenever that arrives, but that definitely seems like something that could be on the chopping block under this new system. We have Respawn doing some single player games like the Jedi games. Those are a little more robust, hopefully, but it very much seems like the idea is going to lean heavily into like EA Sports games, whatever multiplayer games they still have that are attempting to earn money, and then what is likely going to be a big push into mobile, where they have pretty much no presence, and they have failed to get into mobile with things like Apex Legends Mobile, which had to shut down because no one was playing it. If I worked for EA, I would be pretty nervous about all this, and for fans of EA games, it's hard to know if this is going to be a good thing. Indications are that it probably won't be, but this is the largest deal. I should have looked up the number before this. I forgot it. It's like 40 something million. It's less than the Microsoft purchase of Activision, but it's the largest deal of a company being taken private, I believe, at least in some category, maybe ever. But it is a very big deal in that regard. And Saudi Arabia was an investor in EA before this, but this is them getting deeper and deeper into the gaming market. They have a lot of investments, a lot of places. We've seen this. China and Saudi Arabia are doing huge investments in a lot of, Western game companies, but this is a really extreme example of a huge company being taken private, mainly through Saudi Arabia and some other funds. So that's crazy. We won't know the long-term effects of that for a little while, but yeah, that's a big deal. Moving to something, I guess, a little more funny. I was covering this week about how Fortnite disabled this Peacemaker emote where he's doing this dance from the show. I thought about doing it just now, but then maybe that would be bad. Where it's like the first few seconds of the show, he does a little arm movement that people were interpreting as potentially a swastika and pointing towards, Nazism. It sounds ridiculous unless you've been following the show, and maybe it can kind of make some more sense there. Spoilers for Peacemaker. There was this big reveal last week about how this alternate world that Peacemaker is in is actually a Nazi world where they won World War II. And what happened in the show is there were all these little clues spread out through all the other season or throughout the rest of the season that indicated that that was the case, but they were a little hard to pick up on. Some people believe that this dance move was one of those. If you look at the arm movements, it technically forms an H, a swastika. But there's this really crazy footage of this old Donald Duck cartoon from like the 40s that was anti-Nazi propaganda, where Donald Duck is dressed as a German trooper doing the same arm movement. And like, it's not really a random cartoon. It was nominated for an Oscar. So people were like, well. So Fortnite disabled it. As they pursued a conversation about the intent of the emotes with Warner Brothers and presumably James Gunn. It was cleared of Nazi charges, but when it is being brought back now, they're changing the choreography anyway. So it was both cleared, but then also they're changing it regardless. I'm guessing that it was just too associated with the whole controversy at that point, where the little trolling kids would use it as some sort of Nazi thing. Regardless of what was said about its intent. So I don't know. That was just pretty goofy and kind of funny, but yeah. So I don't even know if that was like what is Warner Brother and what is James Gunn going to say? Like, yeah, guys, sorry, we gave you a Nazi emote. We just didn't want to tell you. Like, of course they're going to be like, no, it didn't mean anything. So I don't know. That was funny. This next thing is kind of crazy. It's this new video app that OpenAI put out, who makes ChatGPT. It's called Sora 2. It is a way to make AI videos with the prompts pretty much instantly, and not only like hyper realistic videos in terms of people. This is an app where you can like scan in your face and like put yourself in like funny situations. And it's like, good Lord, I would never scan my face and put it in an app like this. Like, people are making, fake crime videos of like people stealing things from stores. I'm like, okay, yeah, why? I'm going to put my face in here. Okay. But one thing that's happening is like some of the most absurd copyright violation like you've ever seen. And in a way that mainly has to do with video games. There are like pretty strict filters on this already in terms of like, by default, you can't use most big like comic movie TV IP. Like, you can't make anything with Batman, Superman, Darth Vader, all the big guns and those kind of IPs. There are exceptions here in that, for whatever reason, animation is not covered here. A lot of people are making like Rick and Morty skits that are literally identical to Rick and Morty, down to the voice work. Like, literally, they've AI cloned the voice work too. But what's also happened is that video games have not been covered under this at all. I was testing this out for Story, and I could not find a single video game that was like restricted based on their like term search. So like, think of anything and you could do it. Like, I had Lara Croft fighting Kratos on a mountain. I had Eris Morn from Destiny 2 skydiving. I had Master Chief in a police pursuit. And then the craziest one I did, I posted this on Twitter, was Zagreus from Hades riding a scooter in hell, which they did the animation style like perfectly and even made some like actually kind of funny jokes during the video. So what's happening now, this whole thing is confusing because OpenAI is saying that like these IP holders have to opt out like individually of this, which seems insane to me. But one of the biggest things that is happening there is there's so much Nintendo stuff, and especially there's so much Pokemon stuff, where there are endless videos of, especially Pikachu. Like, there's one where Pikachu's doing like ASMR into a microphone. And then the one I saw today was a video of Sam Altman cooking and eating a Pikachu off the grill. So Nintendo, if they want to pry themselves away from suing Palworld over summoning monsters from balls, may want to head over to OpenAI and check out what's going on with grilled Pikachus, because I don't know what happened here, but like whatever copyright guardrails they're supposed to put up here do not remotely apply to video games at all. So welcome to the AI world of, destroying IP. And we've been doing this already, but the way this video app works and like how detailed and how advanced it is kind of like another level. So finally, we will get a little more specific here into a game I'm playing. It's not Ghost of Yotai. I was going to start that, but my timing is such where I'll probably have to start next week. Ghost of Yotai launched. It's reviewing well. People like it. But in terms of what I have been playing more, Borderlands 4 just did two things. They had a preview of their first DLC, Vault Hunter, which is named Cash. It's a robot. They were previewing it with like a guy who like throws playing cards, which obviously immediately reminded everybody of Randy Pitchford, who's super into magic and card tricks and stuff. But this dude's kind of like a demonic cowboy robot guy, so he is not Randy Pitchford. They're previewing this like real early. Like he's not coming for 6-ish months, at least, somewhere around there. So they are previewing this very early for some reason. There's like 4 other updates that are supposed to come before this. But I'm just glad they're back to making DLC Vault Hunters, because that's something they didn't do for 3. I think it's a good idea. I think they're able to make, pretty classic characters doing that. They have before. And then they also did their first big patch this week where they are doing their philosophy of all buffs, no nerfs, at least right away. They touched the hot stove in Borderlands 3 and did not do that, and I think they've learned their lesson. We've also seen this with many other games in the past that have rolled out these giant nerfs. Diablo was a big one that happened with, as opposed to kind of buffing other things at first. Really large amount of buffs, a lot of buffs to Rafa's melee tree, and then Eamon has 65 different buffs or something because he was a very weak hero. I started Eamon, my 3rd character, before this patch, and early on, boy, that was rough. But now, I mean, they buffed like the main move I was using, Rocket Punch, by like 75%, and now he's kind of like wrecking stuff. So, I'm not in the endgame builds, but it's good to see them doing that at least, and I think they have learned their lesson. But now they're talking about, we have to fix some unintended interactions, which is stuff like the crit knife and Vex bleed and things like that. But it's like there's so many insane builds right now that however many unintended interactions they do, people are still going to find other huge damage one-shot builds. I mean, that's Borderlands. And a lot of these are not unintended interactions. They're just good build crafting. So I still really like this game. I'm at like 130 hours. That includes my week of review period, but still, that's a lot. My buddy Moxie, who's like the big Borderlands guy, has 400 hours in, which I don't know how that's physically possible unless he's playing overnight or the game's on. I don't know, but he's done like a bazillion videos, and I've been doing a lot of his builds. So I'm excited. There seems to be, Borderlands isn't like a live service, but they are doing a lot of updates. More than Destiny. I'm not going to do a Destiny thing right now. We'll go into that whole thing later, but I've done a few of those already. But so those are the big stories of the week. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.